Good afternoon. Welcome to today's A&E session of PortGen 2021. We would like to remind everyone to go ahead and edit your profile so that we can see your name and or your company or organization. And with us today, we have Tiffany Scroggs, who is here from Washington PTAC. And we also have Aisha Kadri from the Small Business Transportation Resource Center. And generally we have somebody from the Port of Seattle who have been invited to participate and make a few comments. But what I think I'll do is just introduce Aisha for a few quick words.
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you everyone for being here today. Tiffany, thank you as well. Very excited to get started, and if anyone has any questions as we go through, please don't hesitate to ask. I can help answer them along with everyone else here. And then with that, we'll go ahead and introduce Tiffany.
Excellent, thank you so much. It's good to be here today. My name is Tiffany Scruggs, and I work for the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, known as PTAC. And I was asked here today to go through about an hour of marketing tactics and strategies. So as we go along, I welcome any interaction that you might have, any questions or comments in the chat, and we'll try to dive in. So just first, real briefly about the PTAC program, we help businesses win government contracts and subcontracts. We've been in the state for quite a long time. Last year, our clients won over $400 million in government contracts and subcontracts. So they're rocking it, and we welcome the opportunity to work with you as well. We mainly provide services through workshops like this, but also a ton of one-on-one technical assistance meetings where an advisor would meet with your firm and talk about your government contracting goals and set a path forward for success. So before, let's talk a little bit about learning objectives. We're going to cover 3 essential tools for your marketing strategy in the government marketplace. The first one is market research. You can't really effectively market until you know who you're going to be marketing to. We'll talk about capability statements and public profiles, and we will talk about the importance of a 30-second elevator speech. So first off, market research. I love market research, and this chart explains why. We know based on this that firms who do frequent research over there in the green are more profitable and grow more so than firms who do not. We call the people that don't do market research, we call them reactive. So they might register their firm to sell to various government agencies and then sit back and wait for the solicitations to come in, and then kind of handpick 1 or 2 and then propose and see if they win. That's a very reactive approach to the government marketplace. And when you meet with one of our advisors, we'll try to talk about turning that into a more proactive approach and really targeting specific contracts, specific customers that you want to go after, and then creating a plan to do that. So we know that based on this research that's provided by the Hinge Research Institute, that firms who take the time and invest in research are more likely to know their customer and be successful in the marketplace. So research starts with knowing what you want to find. And I'm a curious person by nature, so I'll get into these databases or websites or wherever, and I'll go down what we call rabbit holes, and I'll get deep into this data, and I'm like, why am I here? What am I doing? What did I want to even start with finding? And so I have to ask myself the 4 questions. Who buys what I sell? How do they buy it? Who do they buy it from? And how much did they pay for it? All of those 4 questions can be answered. That's what's nice about the public sector, is that it is public. You just have to know where to look. And if you get stuck, you can call us and we can help you figure out where to look. And if you get really stuck, you could do a public disclosure request and get the information that you're seeking. But let's dive into each one of these 4 questions. And feel free to stop me, facilitators, if there's any chat or any questions that you want me to slow down on and re-explain. So first question, who buys what I sell? So when we're talking about the port is very transparent, which we all very much appreciate. You can see the awarded contracts with the port. You can see current and past solicitations on these two websites, and you'll get a copy of these slides, or the links are live. So no need to take copious notes right at this moment. Which is really nice. You'll find as you target other agencies that not all agencies have invested in this level of transparency, so that they make it a little bit harder for you. And so this is really nice that the port does that. And we can help you kind of sleuth out where the other agencies are putting that data. How do they buy it? So buying thresholds oftentimes dictate how government buys. And what I mean by that is that if it's over a certain threshold, the government has to follow certain rules. And so when we're talking construction, it might be $100,000 job. And so that's going to go to the small works roster, or through small works procurement of some sort, usually a roster. If it's over 400,000, they're going to have to do a more formal competition. So it kind of depends on the threshold, and you don't always know those thresholds ahead of time. But what's important is that that you understand that there are thresholds and there are rules for how this procurement flows out. And that'll help you figure out how are they buying what it is I sell. So the first buying threshold we talk about is public works thresholds. They're also, how they buy it might be long-term contracts in place. And so here I've listed 3 examples. The first example is called IDIQ, which means indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. The government doesn't really know what they want to buy and how much of it they need. They just know that they need it. And so the port has some examples of this on their website where they'll say, hey, we know we need, HVAC servicing or whatever. That's just an example. So we're going to put some qualified firms on an IDIQ contract, and then we're going to call upon them when we do need that service. The federal government uses MATOCs also, multiple award task order contracts. And so those are same thing. They might have 5 or 6, 7 firms on the MATOC. And when the government needs something, they'll do a task order competition with the 5 or 7 that are on there and find work that way. So if you're sitting around waiting on the public sites to be able to bid on something and to find something to bid on, you might be missing opportunities because they're all flowing through these existing contracts that were already set in place the year before. The third example I have, and there's tens more on top of these 3, but another popular one that's oftentimes used by local governments like the port is called a JOC, a job order contract. The port has one in place right now with Centennial Enterprises, or Centennial Contractors, until next October, for a whole nother year. Any type of construction work that needs to be done is going to go through Centennial for this particular scope, and they're going to find the subs. So that changes who you're selling to, right? So this is why we do the research before we start our marketing strategy, is to figure out, okay, now I want to sell to Centennial. I don't want to bother selling direct to the port, right? I want to be involved in that job order contract scope of work. And again, if you get stuck trying to figure out how they're buying it, that's when you can call PTAC and we can help sleuth that out. That's what we do all day long. The next question in our market research journey is, who did they buy it from? Who are your competitors? There's almost always an incumbent or some other company with better past performance. Once you kind of accept that, then you can reframe your thinking around, how are you better? Do you have a competitive advantage that they don't? Are you cheaper? Are you more unique or more qualified in some other way? So you have to kind of find those identifiers that make you better than your competition. And again, if you get stuck, call PTAC and we can talk a little bit about who did they buy it from and how much did they pay for it? That's the 4th question we want to ask ourselves when we're doing market research. How much did they spend? This is all public information, which is quite nice. And that helps you answer the question of whether or not you can be competitive in that procurement. We have clients who, maybe want to sell office supplies to the federal government, and we pull up the GSA schedule, which is a long-term contract for office supplies, and they see the cost that the office supplies are selling for, and they're like, nope, there's no profit margin in that for my company. I'm going to move on and find another customer that's going to be more profitable. But there, that they saved a ton of time from chasing a customer that's not going to be a very profitable customer. So that's why it's important to know, what your competition is buying, but also how much is your competition charging for that service. So recently, here's an example. The port awarded a contract for asphalt or paving upgrades, and it was awarded to a company called All Stripes for $63,000. And so if you happen to be in paving, what you could do with this information is take a look at that original solicitation and see where you would have bid it. And if you would have bid it at 50,000 or 60,000, then that's a good indicator that darn it, we should have been on top of that and bid. But also maybe next time you could outseat the incumbent for that work. And if you sharpened up your pencil and you're like, oh man, I can't do it for less than 70. How are they doing that? Then that's a question of like, how do you even sharpen your pencil further and lower your costs? And maybe you're including some costs that they didn't, and they're going to lose their shirt, or who knows. But anyway, it does help you kind of get a sense of who's winning this work. So those are the 4 research questions I would ask. I'm looking to make sure there's nobody trying to flag me down here for chat to see if you have any questions. Feel free to unmute and interrupt as well. But I'm going to talk a little bit about other research tools. How did I know about that paving contract, right? I went on the Port website and it's all right there. But there's other research tools that you can use as a business to try and sleuth out what's government buying, who they're buying it from, how are they buying it, and how much are they paying for it. Here's a couple of tools. WEBS is the Washington Electronic Business Solutions. It's for state and local solicitations only. Right now, they don't list award notices, which is unfortunate. But PTAC on the back end can see archived solicitations, which sometimes can be helpful. And we can take that information and try and sleuth out who the award winner was. There's also the DES website. So for construction or public works, there's quite a bit of transparency at the state level. You can see advertised projects, award information, and even contact information sometimes for the primes that you might be targeting. USAspending.gov, this is federal. So USA Spending is going to have the federal award data, who's buying what from who and when. And then for active solicitations and archived solicitations and award notices, you can go to sam.gov, the Solicitation for Award Management. That's another federal source. So again, don't necessarily pay to find this information. You can utilize the no-cost public search engines here. You can use no-cost technical assistance from PTAC, and you can also do public disclosure requests as a last resort if you can't find what it is you need. So that's it for market research. That was kind of a whirlwind kind of overview. But if you go back to those 4 questions and think about, do I understand my customer and what they need and who they've been buying from, will help you kind of format your capability statement, which is where we're going to transition to now. Do I have any questions now, or want to keep on moving on? Okay, great. We'll keep on moving on. So capability statements. This is a 1-pager that describes who you are and how great you are. And it's a tool used as a door opener to begin relationship building with government buyers or prime contractors. And we say it's a tool because you should have a whole toolkit as far as your marketing strategy goes. And the capability statement is just a piece of that, but it's a really important piece. The federal government has what's called a sources sought notice, and the state and local governments tend to use RFI, request for information. And this could be a useful tool to include in that. Sometimes they're requested as part of that. If you can provide X, Y, and Z, please send us your capability statement. It might also even be required in an RFP response. And what it does is it provides an indication of your existing capabilities and your potential capabilities. So let's think a little bit about that. If you think about your existing capabilities, you can prove that you have that capability because you've done work in the past, because your resume supports it or whatever, you have experience, you or your people have experience doing it. And the bridge to your potential could be limited by all sorts of things. It might be limited by your bonding limit. It might be limited by staffing, which is a huge issue for every company right now. But what you want to do on your capability statement is communicate your actual potential capability. So if all you've ever done is construction projects at $500,000, and you can only get bonded up to that amount, you're not going to be saying, we want to be the next Jock Holder or the next, mega Mac, right? Mega multiple work construction contract. That's not going to be you. You don't have the bonding, you don't have the capability, you don't have the potential capability based on your past experience. And that's okay. What your goal in the marketplace is to wiggle around and to find your niche that suits your business at this point in time with a little bit of a stretch so that you can continue to grow your capabilities and grow your potential capabilities into the future. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. The minute that you overpromise and say, oh, we really want to bid that job, and it's too big for your company to handle for whatever reason, maybe cash flow, maybe bonding, whatever, you lose trust with your customer. And that's the problem. So you want to make sure that you understand that bridge between existing and potential and not go too far. Because what you're doing with the capability statement is trying to build relationships. And so if you overpromise and underdeliver, that's not a good way to build relationships. Let's talk a little bit more about this capability statement document. So we also call them a line card, that it's a document that summarizes your core competencies as a business, any achievements that you have, any sort of accreditations or anything that would be helpful in communicating that you know what you're doing and you know how to perform. You use it to communicate these capabilities in a quick 8-second glance. And that's key because they're not going to give it a whole lot much more time than that. You want to look at it quickly, who you are, what you do, are you capable? So one of the things that the contracting officer is constantly asking themselves, because they've had training on this their entire careers, is the contractor, are you responsive and are you responsible? And these are legal terms that they get a ton of training on. It is inappropriate and unethical and illegal for them to do business with firms that are not responsive, that are not responsible. So let's explore these two terms a little bit because we want to try and put your head into the head of the contracting officer that you're targeting. And this is what they care a lot about. They care that you're responsive, means that you submitted a bid or proposal that was responsive to what it is that they need. You conformed to all of the aspects of the solicitation. They want to make sure that you're responsible, meaning that you have the capability in all respects to fully perform the contract and the integrity and reliability that will assure a good faith performance. So we all hear in the news about bad actors out there, and the contracting officer, it looks really bad when they try to do business with one of those bad actors and it goes sour. So that's their whole life goal, is to try not to get sued and to try not to do business with somebody who's not responsive and not responsible. So the other questions that buyer is going to ask is, do they have past performance with my agency or a similar agency? Do they have proven capacity? Do they have teaming partners that have that past performance or capacity that could back them up? And does the contractor have simplified acquisition procedures? And are there set-asides that assist the agency? So all of those questions do what to the buyer? If you can answer, yes, I have past performance, yes, I have capacity, yes, I have teaming partners, yes, I have bonding, all of those, what does that do to the buyer? It increases their trust level and lowers their risk. And that's what you're trying to do with your capability statement, is give them trust that you know what you're doing. And that'll help lower their risk level and lower their blood pressure just a little bit, so that they maybe give you more than 8 seconds after reading your capability statement. So by showing them that you can reduce their risk, again, it's not about you, it's about them, what they want. You can help them by showing all of these things. So your related experience, your credentials, and all of this. I think we kind of covered this pretty well. I do want to mention NAICS codes. That'll come up in a little bit. North American Industry Classification System Code. That's an industry code. You probably have a few that apply to what it is that you do. That's usually used on the federal system or on certifications that are managed through Office of Minority Women Business Enterprises. At the state level, you might hear the term commodity code, and that's just a different type of coding that somebody else came up with. So we have commodity codes and NAICS codes in the marketplace, and those are just defining what industry you're in. Here's a sample capability statement. I know depending on how big your screen is, it might be a little bit hard to see, but it's a nice little clean, beautiful thing. On the left, we'll talk about the one on the left with the American flags on there. Looks like they sell nuts and bolts really quickly. In 8 seconds, I could tell that they were selling nuts and bolts to the federal government. And why I think federal government is because it had the American flag. So that's what this communicated to me. Upon further inspection, I see they have a cage code. You only get a cage code if you're selling to the federal government, and a DUNS number. So that's another number that you get when you register to sell to the federal government. It starts off with founded in 1957. We're the largest blah, 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 blah. So now I'm seeing that they've been around for a while. They have locations on, they mentioned the DFAR, which is the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation. So I'm like, okay, if I'm a buyer, I'm thinking, okay, these guys are reducing my risk because they are speaking my language. They're speaking the DFAR language. And that's what's important to me. So their core competencies are nuts, bolts, and blah, blah, blah. They are certified to all Navy specs. That's important, right? If I'm a Navy buyer, all of a sudden oh, that's exactly what I need. And then they list differentiators there on the right-hand column of the thing, talking about service and quality and value. And a lot of that is kind of fluffy language that, to be quite honest, I wouldn't recommend they keep in there because it kind of takes up a lot of space, and the government's going to expect that you have service, quality, and value and integrity. That's the minimum bar. So to put it on your capability statement is like, okay, yeah, so what? Anyway, what are your past performances? And they list that there too. The other capability statement on the other side for mobile communications. Okay, so at first glance, what do? Radios. They sell radios. So that was the first thing on the core competency, but it took me a little while to figure out what it is that they do. There's no photo. So I don't know what you think when you look at this one for mobile communication, but it kind of probably could benefit from a photo, but it does have some significant past performance. Assuming that the year was 2015, I'd think, oh, wow, they have a lot of recent past performance. Fast forward, it's 2021. What have they been doing since then? But I assume this is an old screenshot. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that one. Let's do this one's a little bit blurry for us to see, but lots of images and I can quickly see the benefit of whatever this thing is. And it's kind of pleasing to the eye, the colors and anything like that. So let's move on though. This one's a little bit blurry. So formatting. If you have a capability statement, you want to call it capability statement. We want it to be short and to the point. 1 page, double-sided. Less is more. So when you talk about that first capability statement with the fluffy language about how they have integrity, not super important. You want to kind of get to the point and have more white space in the margins if you don't feel like you have enough to fill it up, type of thing. You only have 8 seconds to capture their attention and communicate who you are, what you do, and how you reduce the risk of buying from you. We do like it to be visually appealing, and not everyone comes from a graphic design background, but kind of keep it clean. Use a logo for your brand for sure. The columns are nice. We had a contracting officer over at the Navy who gave a lot of capability statement classes, and she said, if you don't have a left column margin, it was 2 or 3 inches, that gave me the details of how to contact you and what NAICS code you're in. I don't want to see your capability statement. So she didn't want like a big document with a lot of words. She wanted a quick bulleted margin where she could quickly see. I don't think she gave people 8 seconds. I think she gave people more like 4 or 5 seconds. The last bullet there, we talked about market research in the very beginning because it's critical to know who you're targeting. We recommend that maybe you have 2 or 3 versions of your capability statement, depending on who you're giving it to. For example, that first one with, let's actually go back to that. This first one, askew, the nut and bolt maker on the left-hand side. Who are they going to give this to? They're going to give this to federal customers, probably in the Navy. If they had any past performance without the Navy or DLA, Defense Logistics Agency, who buys for the Navy, they might want to swap that around, right? But would they give this to a state customer or WSDOT? Probably not, because WSDOT has no idea what a cage code is. They don't care about DUNS numbers. They don't care about NAICS codes, and they certainly don't care about Navy specifications. So we're going to take this and change it all around to make it more WSDOT appropriate. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so this is the interactive piece here. So if you are brave enough, and this goes for our facilitators too, feel free to unmute, show your camera, and help me. This is going to be interactive. I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to say, yes, you should do that, or no, you shouldn't. Okay, so what do you think? You're building out your capability statement. Should you use a government logo? Come on.
I'm going to go with generally no, because you need specific permission for that.
Thank you. That's exactly right. Yeah, the government gets pretty persnickety when you borrow their logo from the internet and throw it on your marketing materials. So never use a government logo. Well, what about a CVE logo? Many of you may not know what that is, but it's the Center for Verification Enterprises that does the veteran-owned small business verification process. So if you get this certification as a veteran-owned or service-disabled veteran-owned, they give you a fancy logo that says, I'm certified. I wish all the certification programs would do that. It's beautiful, and it's designed to put on your capability statement. So use that logo. Yes, I just gave you the answer for that one. Okay, number 3, should you name past government contracts?
Well, Tiffany, this goes back to what you referred to on that one example with the past performance in what, 2014 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so if it's 2021 and that's all that you have is some really old stuff, then the answer is no.
That's true. Yeah, if you only have old stuff that's not super, I mean, so we have a manufacturer as a client who's a delight to work with, but his Navy contracts were from literally 20 years ago. He's like, yeah, we used to go to the Navy base and do, and I was like, what year was that? That's not relevant. That is no longer relevant. So let's go ahead and leave that off and articulate your capabilities some other way. Because maybe, you know, in this case, he had been rocking it with Boeing and Boeing supply chain for a while, which in many respects is just as hard as doing business with the Navy. So he had other stuff to work with. But yeah, good point on that one.
But generally, it's 3 years, right, Tiffany?
Yeah, that's a good point. 3 years would be relevant. You might be able to stretch that out to 5 years past performance. But yeah, generally 3 years is a good rule of thumb. A lot can happen in 3 years. So use both sides of the paper. This was more important when we were, you know, before COVID, before I was sitting in my basement teaching this class. We would go to actual networking events and you would actually hand somebody one of these things. That will come back, I promise, but for right now, so just remember both sides when you go to print. Okay, and more interactive, should you use any size paper?
So the problem with any size paper, you know, in the digital world, you know, if you have a legal size paper in your documents, that's going to create problems for the contracting officer to print. However, if you were to have a legal size document in a PDF file that will adjust automatically, then that's not a problem. But and you really need to scour the solicitation and see what time, or just what are the constraints of submitting this? Is it 5 pages letter size? Is it 20 pages legal size? And, so you have to really pay attention to their specific requirements, because the same thing goes with margins, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. So for the most part, we want to keep it at 8.5 by 11 to make it printable on their end. The Navy, I go back to her all the time. She literally would print them out and stuff them in a binder. And then based on, I don't know what, but anyway, that's how she kept track of all. I'm sure a lot of it's digitized now, but yeah, 8.5 by 11. QR codes, those are fancy. We recommend not using them for cybersecurity reasons. The government is oftentimes unable to scan it and pull it up on their work phones. That's a good way for them to get into big trouble. So it might be perfectly fine in the private sector. So again, it goes back to your target market. Maybe the guys over at Kiewit love QR codes, and so a little one on the corner wouldn't hurt. But for the most part, don't rely on the government to access your website or any other materials using that. Photos, yes or no? Should we include photos?
If you own them.
If you own them, whoever said that, thank you. That's absolutely right. If you own them. And you can buy a stock image that you then can use and own, but yeah, no stealing images. This world is a small world, and you don't want to get dinged for something silly like that. So what about emails? I know there's a lot of small businesses on the line that may have launched their business using their personal email or a company email under Hotmail, Gmail, or Comcast. Should you put that on your capability statement? I would say no. I would say invest in an email that it supports your brand and not Gmail's brand. And because what that email does is it communicates that you don't have very sophisticated back-end office support. And so can you handle a big government contract or subcontract? And also the cybersecurity requirements around all that. It just looks way more professional when you invest in a @mycompany.com email. And there's lots of people that will help set that up for a small fee.
And it's not as hard as it used to be. I mean,
Yeah.
you buy a URL and you attach it to your Gmail and it creates an alias or a mask.
Perfect.
So it's not that hard to do. You don't actually have to have a website to have a @mycompany email anymore.
Thank you for that tidbit. Yeah, that's absolutely right. What do you think? Should they use bullets? Yes, bullets are good. Again, 8 seconds. They don't have time to read a paragraph. What about on time and we're the best, and that I'm going to add to the category of we have value and we have integrity. Of course you do. Of course you do. So of course you're going to be on time. If you're not on time, you're not going to be doing business with the government for long. So you want to kind of just meet them where they're at. And that's the bar. That's the low bar, right? You want to kind of go above and beyond that and help them reduce risk. This one's interesting. Years in business. Okay, so how's this? Hi, I'm Tiffany, and I just launched an engineering firm last month. I'm really excited to do business with you. Should I include? No, I see heads shaking. No, get out of there. That's absolutely right. But what about this one? Hi, I'm Tiffany. I have an engineering firm that specializes in X, Y, and Z, and we've been around for 60 years. So I'm showing a little bit more like I have established longevity, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure the government cares a whole lot. They might. I don't know. What do you think, Marnie?
I honestly, I don't see the years in business and year established as being as beneficial as a lot of people think that it is.
Yeah.
Mostly because if you've been around a really long time and you're just getting into government contracting, you're still just getting into government contracting. If you've been around a long time and you've been doing government contracting, then you probably don't need to tell us that.
That's right.
So that we find out that information in another way. So I always recommend not putting that on.
Perfect. Very good. I'll follow your lead on that one for sure. And a lot of businesses that are brand new really struggle with that and feel insecure about it. Don't feel insecure. It is what it is. You obviously have personal past performance or personal resume, that's pretty strong, where you're feeling confident in your ability to perform. So just communicate your abilities and your capabilities, and that'll and have confidence when you do it.
Oh, can I make one comment?
Yeah.
In regards to the using both sides of the paper, just because you have two sides of paper doesn't mean you have to fill it all up. Let the capability statement breathe. Make sure that it's super readable, like use 14 or 16 point font, so that at an 8-second glance, they are not straining their eyes to read a 10-point font with the entire thing filled out. So just because you have 2 pages doesn't mean you have to fill it all up.
Yes, good point. And I know a lot of, we watch these people at trade shows and whatnot, or we'll be sharing a booth with the GSA, for example, or something, and we'll see them take the capability statement and turn it over and write in the margin their notes. Like, oh boy, this guy had no idea what he was talking about. Maybe they're writing, or maybe they're saying, this guy needs to talk to Al, and I don't know, who knows, but they need that margin space to write those notes. So go ahead and give it to them. And speaking of paper copies, the glossy finish is hard for them with their ballpoint pens to write on the margins. So that goes for your business card too. Every graphic designer will want your business card super glossy, expensive, beautiful, but nobody can write on it. So nobody can kind of remember notes that they might have wrote down right after meeting you. So just have that in mind.
Or the black business cards. No.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. So my graphic designer, I mean, the cards were beautiful and the printer was really proud. And I was like, I can't use that. It's like dark blue and it's shiny. So anyway, I threw a big stink. Okay. Okay. So we all know that this looks bad, right? So my 8-year-old would think that looks awesome. She would want as much color and as much fun font as she could possibly get, but she's not a business owner. So we want boring is okay. And I think the next session is with another marketing professional who might have some more ideas on this, but here's the font size 14, no smaller than 12. We all need reading glasses these days, so don't make it hard on us. If you do choose to use a variety of fonts, we recommend no more than 2, so that it just is easier on the eyes. We talked about the borders and bullet ties whenever possible. So let's see, we're talking about prioritizing your strengths and your customer needs. So again, this is more ideas that might spark your ideas when you go to create your capability statement.
And I think this also links back to the templates that PTAC can offer. Don't just use the naked template. Make sure that you tweak it to be your company. What we can offer is just kind of a skeleton guideline. But we do see it quite often where the clients have just filled in the blanks and 6 people will have the same look and feel. So just remember that templates that are provided are guidelines.
And that's one of the reasons why we're always hesitant to even hand out a template, is because we want people to fully customize them to reflect their own company's strengths and not the next guy that gets the template, So yeah, good point. Yeah, but we do have templates. So when you meet with your PTAC counselor and talk about capability statement, let us know. So the finishing touches, and this is where a talented or professional individual in marketing and graphic design could be helpful. And one of the first things that they'll do is try and rearrange all the information so that the DUNS numbers and NAICS codes and all that boring stuff that in their mind isn't important at all will be like hidden at the very bottom right. And it's like, no, that's really important to my customer. So you kind of have to work with a professional, if you choose to do that understands the importance of the capability statement, and kind of hold your own with, well, my PTACer said that was really important to have right up front, top left. And so anyway, but they can kind of clean it up, make sure that it looks in line with your brand and it's professional looking and beautiful. And if you do get it professionally done, ask them to do it in a software that you can update. You know, a lot of the professionals will want to use their fancy Adobe type software that you don't pay for, nor how to use. And so if they could convert it over to Publisher or something that you can update, then when you get new past performance, or you want to add a NAICS code or something that's an easy fix, that you have the power to control that quickly rather than going back out to contract with a graphic designer. Let's see, update often, that's a living document. We want to ensure consistency with your other, and we're going to talk about that next, your other online presence, to make sure that your capability statement matches your website. That's next up on the PowerPoint. I think that's good. Don't sell the jockey, sell the horse. I like that a lot. Okay, audiences. So with the importance of market research is critical, because now you're tailoring your capability statement to the agency or the prime or the teaming partner to make sure that it's what they want to see. And the goal with this effort is to obtain a decision maker meeting. So say you're targeting Centennial Construction, who has that jock with the port, and you provide you know, I don't know, HVAC repair. You can say, hey, here's my capability statement. I provide HVAC repair. I'm pretty good at it. Can I meet with you for 10 minutes and find out if you have a need for what it is I sell or whatever? That's a terrible 30-second pitch, but you get the sense that that's how you would use this document to go talk to a decision maker. So the best uses of the capability statement is a door opener. So they look at it and they're like, oh, I need to learn more about this gal. It's to start relationship building, and it's a tool that you can use in your email introduction. If you go to an in-person conference ever again, you can leave it behind. You can also email it in a PDF form or a link to a PDF where they can go get it later. There's a lot of industry days that tend to happen. A lot of them are virtual now, so that PDF is even more important. You can also request an in-person briefing or a Zoom or Teams briefing where you kind of outline your capabilities and provide them the statement at that point. Hopefully your capability statement, that piece of paper, leads to one of those presentations where you have a chance to really talk about whatever services you provide. So, you know, if I'm that engineering company, that becomes even more important because of the critical and technical nature of my work, right? So the printed handout is going to be kind of who we are, what we do, what we've done, our key specialized services, maybe some key employees based on their technical expertise, and that kind of the why us. And then hopefully that'll lead to a 10-minute capability presentation where you have a chance to kind of bring that more to life. If you do get a presentation opportunity, you'd probably need a PowerPoint or would like a PowerPoint. And we recommend no more than one slide for every 5 minutes, which is a good rule of thumb that nobody follows, but try your best. So that means if you have a 30-minute briefing, which is a long time, most of them are 10, 15 minutes, you want to try and get it down to 6 slides. So it's not your life history. It's more of getting to the point about your capabilities and what you could do for them. So it's not about you, it's about them.
So Tiffany, in regards to the 30-minute presentation, you know, I would highly recommend that they practice this. You know, it's no different than your elevator pitch. And you really don't want to be doing a cold call, you know, with no experience in your presentation, you know, and if you can get an audience in front of you, you know, a couple colleagues or, you know, maybe, you know, students or whoever that can kind of, you know, keep you so that you develop a really good pace. Mm-hmm. and, you know, don't hem and haw a lot, which, you know, I personally have a problem with that, you know, and it takes a lot of practice, but just having a PowerPoint that you've never really given before is not a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Practice in front of your dog or your kids or whatever you need, but ideally your coworkers or in front of PTAC. We'll critique it. We'll, you know, we want you to put your best foot forward. So keep in mind that the 5 key elements here of a capability statement: showcase your capabilities, showcase your core competencies. What are you really good at? You can't be good at everything. If you are, you're probably not that good at anything, right? Showcase your past performance, especially if it's relevant. And if it's not immediately relevant, make it relevant, if that makes sense. So a janitorial company recently only had commercial janitorial. They were doing business for a specific retailer and a specific restaurant that everyone had heard of. And so we said, go ahead and put that past performance on there to showcase the quantity of, I guess, work that you can do, you know, like, hey, we handle all of this chain restaurants janitorial needs up and down I-5 in a 5-county region. Like, okay. So anyway, put the past performance on there. Your differentiators. Remember when we were doing our market research, we looked up our competition and we found out what makes us better. You want to put those on there in a very clear way so that they know that you're not just the same old. And then of course, company information of who you are and how they could find you.
One thing, if I could chime in too, when you're dealing with capability statements, an average marketing / advertising firm with no experience in dealing with the government has a lot of things to say about them and how you should do them differently. And they tend to be wrong versus what the government actually wants from you. And so you can get into these conflicts and you just have to keep tabs on if the advertising agency actually knows what's supposed to be on one, because they will come in and remove all your NAICS codes.
Yep.
And they will change to 16 different fonts because it looks appealing. And you have to go in and explain to them that you're marketing for everybody else. We're trying to market to the feds here. And I've had some clients where that became an actual problem because the client finally goes with the marketing team's version of the document and the feds didn't care. They had no interest in that document. And so you save a lot of time by just letting everybody involved know that private corporate marketing and federal input for capability statements and line cards, they are a totally different thing. And if you're not specialized in that, Mr. Marketing Guy, please just step back. We'll take care of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I don't know why they take the NAICS codes off. That happens every time. And I'm like, no, that actually communicates something, I promise. It looks really boring. It's but I promise it's really important, especially for federal customers. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about online profiles. So what we mean by that is that we want to make sure your story is straight. So here you are on your capability statement telling me that you're qualified to do X, Y, and Z. I, as a buyer, am going to be thinking, are you really qualified? Are you too expensive? Are you a scammer? Like, do you really have no idea what you're doing and you're just trying to steal money? Or are you just like every other competitor? And I'm not saying that all buyers are this negative, but if they've been around for a while, they might have become jaded. And at this point, they're kind of tired and they're thinking, there's no way you're exactly what I'm looking for. So you want to make sure your story is straight in the sense that your capability statement matches all the other information that's out there publicly about your company. So your job is to prove them wrong, that of course you're qualified, that you are affordable, that you're not a scammer, and that you're way better than any competition. So let's talk a little bit about how you do that. So your capability statement should match your website. It should be on your website. And I think we have an example here coming up. It should also match your social media. So not every company has a social media presence or strategy. But if you have a presence, you should have a strategy. It's difficult out there to, especially for small businesses, to kind of have it all. But we do recommend that, if you're going to have a social media presence, that we do recommend you do that. But you also have a strategy around it about what you post, why you post it, and how that enhances your brand and not distracts from it. Which should match your other online profiles. So your website should match what's on your dynamic small business search, which is an online searchable database available through the system for award management. If you don't know what you look like on there, go ahead and pull yourself up. And when you get these slides, that link will be live. The site was down today, but you can go on there normally and do a search for yourself and find out what it is that you look like. Make sure that your web's commodity codes are accurate. When you register on the Washington Electronic Business System, it'll have you pick commodity codes, which is a super tedious and annoying task because there's a commodity code for everything. But it's important to get those right. You might be missing out on notices of opportunities to bid without having the right commodity code. You have it off if you have a certification through OMWBE, you have a certification description of your company on their directory. So that link on this takes you to the online directory and you can pull yourself up and see what it says. And if it's out of date, you can work to get that up to date. We also want that to match your business card. You know, we see 1,400 businesses a year come through PTAC, and every once in a while we get somebody who you know, say, oh, well, what's your business name? And then they tell us one thing, and then later we look on their website and it has a different business name. And then we look on their SAM registration, it has a third business name, and we're like, who are you? and they're usually chronic entrepreneurs that are a little bit disorganized, which is fine. But what that communicates to your customer is that you don't have your story straight. You don't know who you are and what you're selling. So just be clear with what it is that you're offering, and that all of these match. Let's talk a little bit about websites. So when we go visit these websites, is it clear that the company supports the government marketplace? And I'll spoil alert, yes, especially the Pinnacle Investigations. They have a whole tab dedicated to government business. And it's very clear that they're targeting government as a customer, and the government would feel welcome in going to that website. And when you go to these company websites, you get a sense that this company knows indeed that what they're doing. There's a lot of good examples out there, and there's a lot of really bad examples out there. So, but again, if the government finds you at all interesting or intriguing, they might just go to your website to check you out. And you want to make sure that whatever is on your capability statement matches what they find on your site. I think maybe at the end we have time to go to one of these and just check it out. So remind me if we have time. Website do's and don'ts. Do have a government tab or button. If you're investing in the government marketplace and you're going for it, just create a tab on the website and have it be dedicated to that effort. Want to make sure that you're using what the government verbiage calls you, and include some case studies. Be specific regarding the benefits of doing business with you. Metrics and differentiators can be really helpful. We don't recommend music or videos. We don't recommend too much industry jargon, because remember, buyers with the government buy a lot of stuff. And so they might know that much about everything, but they don't really know your industry deep. They just know that they were assigned to buy it. So they might not see understand all of that jargon. And they want to know who you are. So a lot of times these days, especially, you go to a website and you click contact us and it's just a fillable form. The person clicking that doesn't know where you are located or who's behind the company, like names. And that could be problematic, because then they start questioning, am I in the right spot? Is this the Washington company that I met the other day, type of thing. So the internet is a big, big world. And so you need to make sure that you're articulating where you're at in it. If that makes sense. Social media, again, the government is using more and more social media. We see forecasting opportunities. We see, all sorts of information and insight into government customers through social media. So it might be something to invest in. Social media marketing. So if you do choose to dive into this great wild west of professional social media marketing, you want to make sure that you're tailoring it to your target agencies and you're committing to making it active. So that could include your blog or your LinkedIn. You want to make sure that LinkedIn is being used to build relationships and not necessarily sell. With Twitter, you want to make sure that you keep the conversation going. So if your customer retweets what you tweeted or whatever, that you're in it and engaged, which could take time. So all this takes time. for Facebook, we usually see the value in highlighting your employees and your community involvement and all the softer side of your company. And then news feeds can be really helpful in articulating how great your company is as well. So there's a whole strategy around social media marketing, and I bet our next presenter might be able to provide additional insight into that. But don't underestimate the time it would take to do this correctly, I guess. So if you want to start small, maybe consider just LinkedIn for now for your company and professionally, and then kind of branch out from there. So white papers can be really helpful, especially if you're in an industry that relies on technical expertise. So say you're an environmental biologist and you are an expert in some sort of butterfly that's going extinct. I don't know, write a white paper on that because it could be a way to assert your expertise in your industry, right? Government wants to do business with the people that know their world the best. So sometimes this is a great way. This kind of goes along with maybe speaking at conferences or being on a panel. It gives you instant credibility, which is what you're looking for in a marketing strategy. So news releases, have a news place on your website that highlights news about your company. You know, so-and-so company won this most recent contract, or so-and-so company, you know, won an environmentally friendly award, or whatever it is, or so-and-so at this company won an award, you know, whatever. It's real news, but it articulates the core values of your company, and it articulates how great you are. So, and it could be listed on your website, and you can link that to your friends on social media and to your network as well. So again, you're increasing credibility and you're reducing the risk that you're going to mess up with the government money. And I do have an example of that if we have time later. Oh, maybe I included it. So Vigor Marine, this is a large company in Seattle and Portland, and they won the most recent ferry contract with Washington State Ferries. And their news feed is very robust. So if you Google Vigor News, it goes to their website, which is news that they've curated about themselves. So it's a great way for them to forward their story and to tell their story. So, and it looks very legit, right? Vigor won's the new US Navy. They began work on some sort of aircraft carrier. They have an environmental protection something. And so anyway, it's robust. They do about one a month. And it kind of helps the customers, if they happen to cross it, say, oh yeah, these guys are all over the place. They're doing good stuff. So just that thought. So marketing should clearly indicate how they can buy from you. And so we call those purchase vehicles. Are you on an IDIQ? Are you on a GSA schedule? This is mainly for supplies, but services as well. Are you on a master contract through the Department of Enterprise Services, right? Or are you on the Small Works roster for whatever entity? All of those allow the buyer to be like, oh, great. I can easily buy from them because I can piggyback off whatever contract they're already on. So let's talk a little bit about 30-second elevator pitch. We have about 15 more minutes. And this is kind of fun. And the reason I find it fun is because we've seen businesses with a 30-second elevator pitch turn that into a 5-minute meeting, which turned into a sole source contract, meaning the government said, you know what? I like you so much, I'm going to buy from you right now. And it's like, yeah, like they're not usually allowed to do that. But in this case, it was a woman-owned firm and they were able to justify it on their end to do the sole source, and boom, because that firm had a quality 30-second pitch that they had practiced and a quality capabilities briefing that they were ready to go. So it was really exciting. We want to see that for every single one of the businesses that we work with. So the pitch, we don't even call it an introduction. What we call it is a focused marketing pitch that communicates your specific offering and how it matches their need. So no company does everything, and we don't want you to try. But so what we call is kind of a reverse pyramid matchmaking. So we provide, you fill in the blank of what it is you provide. Our core competencies are, you fill that in for yourself. We are the absolute best at, or we are experts in, blah, blah, blah. We are different because, and we can help your agency by, da, 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 da. Okay, so we're going to take just a minute or two and go ahead and sketch this out for yourself. And see if you ran into the buyer you've been targeting at Safeway tomorrow, this is what you would say. So we're going to just take a moment. All right, is anyone brave enough to share what they wrote down? Think about being brave and sharing in front of the group. But in the meantime, I'll talk a little bit about what it doesn't sound like. So if I use my own matchmaking pitch for PTAC services, right? I'm not going to say, "Hi, I'm Tiffany. We don't really do business advising or financing, and we can't really help you with the PPP lending stuff. What we do is help businesses with government contracts." So yeah, right. So that's an example of something bad. I started talking about what I don't do. Why would I do that? Right. So you get nervous, and maybe the Small Business Development Center was right next to me and they just talked about how they can help with all that. And so then I framed it in terms of what they can do versus who I am, right? Because I wasn't prepared. So instead, I want to come in and say, we provide business advising services for firms that want to sell to government agencies, so we can increase your government win rate on the next RFP that you respond to. We are the absolute best at helping small businesses succeed in selling to government agencies and government primes. Our services are offered at no cost, and we can definitely fit you in this week if you wanted to meet with one of our advisors. Right, so that was just kind of off the cuff, but that gives you a sense of that I put it in terms of what my core competencies are, what makes us different. We're free, that helps, and what we're absolutely best at. So I didn't talk in terms of what I don't do, but what I'm absolute best at is increasing your win rate, right? So any questions on that, or anyone brave enough to share? It's a good marketing opportunity too, if you unmute and tell us about your company. Going once.
Well, Tiffany, this is Leslie. The Washington PTAC has a coffee gathering,
Yeah,
out of the Kitsap office. And this is exactly what goes on in that conversation. It's very informal. And, you know, Kathy Kokas and Mona Carlson and Terry Holmberg, all of them, you know, they have so much experience and knowledge that, you know, you try to give them a little pitch, and, you know, then you ask them for help. And anyway, they will really work with you to tweak it. So if today you don't really feel, you know, like you want to speak up, there are opportunities within the PTAC world that will work with you, you know, in a very protective, you know, group setting. And it really is a great opportunity for small businesses.
thanks for that. And Marnie put into chat the October version of that. It happens every month. So if you miss October, you could catch them in November. But yeah, absolutely. It's that important to have it ready to roll, because we've seen firms win work as a result of 10 seconds. So let's move on. I think we got that going. Okay, so an entry email. So I check the emails for WashingtonPTAC.org. We're a pretty big program, and I get all the intro emails of people saying, "Hey, I need help," and I'm oftentimes surprised at the lack of professionalism in some of those emails. For me, it doesn't matter. We serve everybody that contacts us. But when they don't use capitalization or any sentence structure at all, you can tell it was probably typed from their phone, and no subject or a thing at the end that says who they are. It might even just not even say like from Mary. It just has nothing. It's just a paragraph with no punctuation and no capitalization that explains what they need. That's not what you want to do. You want to use every email as an opportunity to have a firm handshake, right? That's the new handshake, is this entry email. You want to get to the point. You want to be professional. Start with the subject line. You want to have some compelling reason as to why you're reaching out to this individual person. You want to have a very clear request related to it, so that every communication has clarity to it, so the person doesn't have to think hard and long about why are you contacting me, right? And hopefully open the door for future contact. Buyers get millions of emails all the time, and the more clear you are, the more likely it is that they will respond.
So Tiffany, this is actually a generational issue in regards to the email.
Yeah.
Those of us of a certain age, kind of cut our teeth on doing email, and this is our preferred methodology. And, the younger generations coming up, they're more in tune with texting and instant messaging. But the reality is government agencies are the ones that are still using fax machines, and, they need formalized approaches. And, if all you do is the text messaging, you are going to probably fall through the cracks, because they have to focus on standardized routines. And, it's just best that undergraduate and graduate students, be instructed on, some businesses, are very casual, social media, but other entities like government offices, no, you have to follow the rules, or you don't get to play.
Yeah. Good point. And that entry email can make or break your opportunity for a secondary contact with that agency.
Also, sorry, Tiffany, this is Marnie. Also remember that these people you're reaching out to might be getting 500 emails a day, 200 emails a day. So if it's not specific and directive for them to be able to support you, they're not going to have time to respond or be able to respond quickly. But if you send an email to a contracting officer, regarding contract solicitation number, blah, 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 I'm looking for this piece of information regarding this contract or to discuss something. And PTAC can help you navigate how to best reach out to those contracting officers or primes in a way that will help you stand out in your entry email.
Yeah, great, thank you. So again, we're relationship building when we talk about marketing strategies. So, and keep in mind, you've got to know who you're talking to. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the different levels of decision makers in the government marketplace. My dog is barking, which is very unusual. Okay. So be professional. I'm always shocked at the number of firms that maybe they had a really bad experience and they have this belief that the system's rigged and that everyone's out to get them or something, and they get really grumpy about it, and they're yelling at their customer, or they're being really candid and they shouldn't be candid. So you want to keep it professional, and you can still be frustrated. You can still have those feelings, but you're not going to catch a lot of flies if you're using vinegar. You want to try and not to be all things. That's really important. But lead with we can't harp on this enough, with what you're best at, with what you're good at. And help mitigate any risk that the government might have in doing business with you. So where to get noticed? We've talked about none of these people have masks on, by the way. This is a pre-COVID photo. Conferences, vendor outreach, matchmaking, associations are great. You know, AGC, if you're in construction, they have an event coming up for federal contracting that has a lot of one-on-one matchmaking sessions. And they hardly ever sell out. This is going to be a really great event. I think it's coming up this month. So go to the AGC, Association of General Contractors, and check out their upcoming federal facilities outlook and matchmaking event. And you can practice all the things that we talked about today. Okay, identifying the real decision makers with the limited time I have left. So you got to know who you're talking about or talking to. So there's usually 3 layers of decision makers, and we'll talk a little bit about these layers. One layer is usually the program manager, the technical representatives. These are the people that you're going to work with after you win the contract, or the people that are kind of in the shop doing the thing. They're the most difficult to locate. So if you're trying to do business with WashDOT Fleet Services, for example, it's really hard to find those people that manage the fleet for a given agency, for example. So you might be able to use the Office of Small Business Utilization, or your contracting officer, or somebody that you might know, but that all requires a relationship to try and find those technical representatives. Easier to locate are the contracting officers, but again, those are the ones getting 500 emails a day. And those are the people that are obligated or allowed to make a purchase on behalf of taxpayers. So the technical representatives often might say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, and they have to send it over to a contracting officer who will then turn around and go buy it. There's also small business representatives. So these people are here to help the agency meet their small and diverse business goals. The federal agencies are very good at, usually very good at having these people published and on staff and ready to go. And the state and local governments are starting to have these types of folks embedded in their organizations. But their whole goal is to find you and help educate you on how to do business with their agency. And then kind of on the back end, try to advocate for more small business utilization in their procurements. So can a small business representative buy from you if they like you? Probably not. They're probably not the contracting officer, although sometimes they are. But most of the time they don't have the authority to buy. So you're going to have to end up with the contracting officer, but it doesn't hurt to make relationships with them. So if your target is contacting that Office of Small Business, you want to make sure that your message shows that you're a credible vendor so that they can pass along your capability statement to the buyer down the hall. If you're targeting to a contracting officer, again, you're credible, you're professional, you know what you're doing. You might use the entry email, follow up with the capability statement, and get that capability statement briefing where you have a PowerPoint presentation. If you're targeting the project manager, you want to make sure that you bring your expertise with you, that you are experts in what it is that they are experts in or experts needing. And you would use the tools here, the entry email, the capability statement, maybe a story or two, a case study about how you've helped a similar agency overcome a similar problem. And then the end users or the crew chiefs, sometimes that's a phone call followed by a capability statement if you can find them. So, hey, we can help, use us, that kind of thing. So just be cognizant about who you're talking to and who has the authority to delegate contracts, do change orders and all of that. It's a pretty important thing to pay attention to. So in government contracting, you probably might be the prime, meaning you're dealing directly with the government. You might be the sub, or you might be the sub to a sub to a sub, and that's a really tiny dog on this image. You also might be the teaming partner. So your competition can be your frenemy the next month as you two go together on a bid to kind of leverage each other's past performance. So PTAC is here to help. We really do love what we do because we get to work with some of the hardest working innovative firms in Washington state and help them grow and contribute to their local economies. So put us to work. Please let us know how we can help you. WashingtonPTAC.org is our website where you can become a client. You can also ping me at my email, and that phone number goes direct to my phone as well. So Thank you for the time today. And thank you to the Small Business Transportation Resource Center and to the Port of Seattle for hosting me today. It's been a delight, and I'll turn it back over to the powers that be.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. Outstanding as usual. PTAC makes a really great team, and our participants today really have kind of like an all-star representative, at the lead with Tiffany, and Marnie is here, and I'm here. And so if you have any questions through the chat or maybe later, please connect with us, and we can answer those questions for you. And so we'll give it a couple minutes here if anybody has any additional questions. And if not, then we will go ahead and take a short break and then come back for our second presentation, which is scheduled at 2:35. So any hands up, any questions, any comments? Andrew.
Tiffany, did you want to hit the Eclipse Printing and PinnacleProf.com websites at all?
Yeah, we
Since
certainly
back to them
could. Sure.
I'll drop those in the chat, and then if you want to go over them, cool. And if not,
Oh,
that's-
yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions while I'm multitasking?
So those that don't know, Washington PTAC has offices all around the state. And, we have a really heavy representation up and down I-5, but from Spokane to Tri-Cities to Vancouver and Kitsap and Everett and, Seattle, Auburn. We have some really talented retired contracting officers who have joined the forces with Washington PTAC. And anyway, we have lots and lots of great resources for you to tap into. So with that, I'll let Tiffany do a little show and tell on Pinnacle Investigations, which happened to have been one of my clients in Spokane.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, their website is nice and clean, and it looks like they're exclusively targeting government contractors from this main page, because I clicked on the government contractor page. But if I would go to their main page here to their lead, it talks a little bit about background screening services that they do. And then if I'm a government buyer, I would go up here and click government contractors, and I would better understand, oh, yep, they speak in my language. They got a gauge code. Right. And so they even have a SIN, which tells me that they're on a GSA schedule, which is delightful. So talks a little bit about their history and their mission and their credentials down here as far as so anyway, this is quite nice and clean and beautiful. This company here, Eclipse Screen Printing, did my screen share follow me? Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes it doesn't. Screen pair. So looks like they offer screen printing. They have some industry news right here about the I-5 Aerospace Expo, which tells me right away, okay, they're selling in aerospace. They must have some pretty big capabilities. And if I'm a government prime, they're probably targeting maybe I'm Boeing, right? I'm like, oh man, I need some laser cutting, right? So I'm going to click on the aerospace button, and I'm going to understand that these guys are connected. They went to the same conference I was at, right? So small little aerospace world we live in here in the Northwest. And I'm going to get a sense of who they are. So this website doesn't have any bells and whistles that anybody else could easily set up, but it's going to be nice and clean, and it's going to have contact information that I can use to see, oh, they're in the Spokane Valley area. I can have a phone number to call, and I can email in here. So that's really what you're looking for. Any questions or comments, or anyone want to add to the discussion?
So that just goes to show you that once you become a PTAC client, it doesn't matter how many decades you might be separated from PTAC, they will probably always remember you.
That's right. We remember our favorites. So
Yeah.
become one of our favorites. Marnie?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the logo thing that you had mentioned earlier. Like CVE does provide a logo for certified firms. DBE does not.
Right.
Don't Google DBE and pull a logo. It's going to make the people who know what they're looking at know that you don't know what you're looking at. So, or your marketing person doesn't know what they're looking at. I've run into that before. So if you do pay for a marketing person to do your capability statement, your website, make sure you have somebody who's government friendly or aware. Review it before you share it and post it and go forward with it. Because it's those little flaws that will stand out. And then you got to try and explain yourself when somebody goes, why is this on here?
That's right.
Yep, that's right. Very good. All right. Well, thanks again for the opportunity. I look forward to working with the folks that came to today's training in the future. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. And I think we'll go ahead and take a short break.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Amy.
This afternoon, we are continuing our daily topic on brand and management and marketing ideas. And for this second session, we have Yvonne Brandon, who is the principal strategist for Brandon Multi-Channel Marketing Services, LLC. And Yvonne's gonna give us some really great training on digital brand management. So with that, I'll turn it over to Yvonne. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie. And good afternoon. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I spent 23 years in enterprise sales and sales management at the IBM Corporation, the last 12 of which were spent managing a global relationship marketing team, which was focused on the needs of executive decision makers in IBM's top global accounts. And in the mid-90s, I used my budget to commission one of the first web platforms in any industry to offer content self-selection. But in 2005, I moved from Pittsburgh to Redmond, Washington to join Microsoft, where I managed a web publishing team responsible for serving on-demand, in-language content that Microsoft's 1.9 million partner firms around the globe needed so they could sell Microsoft products and service offerings to their customers. Well, in that job, I hosted a lot of focus groups. And many of the smaller partner firms would come in and people would have a title like sales and marketing manager. And typically that person would spend their time on the sales side. But once that big sale closed, they realized they had absolutely nothing in the pipeline. So I saw an opportunity for myself to fill that void for those companies. So in 2008, I resigned my job at Microsoft and started Brandon Multi-Channel Marketing Services and began taking on some of those partner companies as my clients. Well, realizing how really important social media had become as a marketing channel, I went back to college, and in 2015, I earned certification in digital marketing from Bellevue College. A couple of years ago, though, I decided it was time to take down my shingle and retire. But when approached to host this workshop, I really simply could not pass up the opportunity to share what I've learned about digital marketing and how to execute web and social media branding without breaking the bank, because I had to learn to do that too as a small business. So I've segmented this presentation into 4 broad subjects. The first is the business opportunity that having a branded website and being active on social media represents to business growth in a digital world, and with special focus on Google and its dominance as the most powerful search engine in the world. And we'll look at why it's so powerful. Also, the digital world can be intimidating. So we'll look at some perceived barriers to success that I've heard about and observed when it comes to getting started on a digital branding journey, and how to overcome any apprehension one might be feeling relative to the cost or the time that's required to do a good job. Next, I'm going to take a look or walk through a mid-sized minority and female-owned A&E firm that I picked at random, and I'm going to walk through and do an informal audit with you on their website and on their social media. Throughout the presentation, I'm going to talk a lot about search engine optimization, or SEO, because it is relevant both to being found by your prospects and being found by Google. And we'll walk through the 10 most important elements that are needed on every website homepage. And finally, we'll focus on the journey a customer takes to find you in the first place, and how to map your demand generation activities and contents so that you can be found. And then, of course, once a prospect becomes your customer, we'll look at how to increase their lifetime value to your business through a nurture process, and talk about some of the tools and resources that you'll need in order to nurture those customers toward the next sale or the next engagement. There's a lot of material to cover here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. This quote by Bill Gates is probably more relevant now than it was in 1995 when it was captured, along with his executive memo called The Internet Tidal Wave, in which Gates, as CEO, instructed his direct reports to expand the company's internet presence. He said, "I want to make it clear that our focus on the internet is crucial to every part of our business." His memo went on 26 years ago. He saw that the internet was fast becoming a ubiquitous force that was already changing the way people and businesses were regularly and comfortably communicating and interacting with each other online. Gates continues, of course, to be a visionary, but back then he clearly saw the opportunity for Microsoft and businesses of all sizes to be online. So let's take a look at the current state of the business opportunity. These global statistics were published in January of this year by social media management company Hootsuite. It shows that the world's population stood at 7.83 billion people at the start of 2021. And the United Nations reports that this figure is currently growing by 1% per year, which means the global population has increased by more than 80 million people since the start of pandemic year 2020. Unique mobile users have grown by 93 million since January of 2020, meaning that the start of this year, more than 8 billion people currently use their mobile phones for personal and business interactions, which equates to nearly 67% of the entire world's population. Why should we care? Well, because unlike practicing business in the pre-internet world where most business was done locally, if you choose to, you can do business globally. And your business opportunities are quite literally limitless if your brand is online. So let's look at the stats for social media. This is a very important channel for promoting our brands. And currently, there are 4.2 billion social media users around the world. That figure has grown by 490 million in the past 12 months. And the total number of social media users is now equivalent to more than 53% of the world's total population. These channels, folks, are just too big to ignore. And the reason for that is called Google. Let me be blunt. It's probably pretty obvious that what this chart is saying, but it reveals Google's true dominance over the internet. Google has 92% of market share. So when consumers and B2B buyers want to find a solution, they Google it. Have you ever wondered why no other company can match Google's search engine dominance? Well, part of the reason is basic mathematics. Google operates at an insane level, processing 3.5 billion searches every day. And to get millions of people to try a different search algorithm is expensive. Even Amazon can compete with that. Google's strategy is to go where users are and to ensure that wherever they go, a Google search is not going to be hard to do. However, your site and its contents absolutely must contain optimized content, which we're going to discuss throughout this presentation. Google has even made it easy for small businesses to begin the process of propagating their brands across the web by offering a series of free tools called Google My Business that lets you manage how your business appears both on Google searches and on Google Maps. You can include your business name, your logo, hours of business, and location, and you can add photos, you can monitor and reply to customer reviews, and learn how and from where people are searching for you. I put a link, by the way, into Google My Business link, or link to them, in the appendix portion of this presentation. So if you haven't already done so, I would strongly suggest that you go there and you register your business. Let's look at what digital influence involves. This illustration here shows the digital influence that your business earns rests on how effective your company is at using all these levers of power. Now, I've been in marketing for over 30 years, and adding all those social channels certainly made my job of building effective marketing strategies for my clients much more complex. But it also opened up more opportunities for my clients that traditional channels like direct mail or 800 numbers and business reply cards simply could never do. And certainly it's more cost effective for them. In order to continue being relevant in my field, I mentioned I actually enrolled in a 2-year digital marketing certification program at Bellevue College because I needed to understand how to incorporate social media strategies for my clients. Not just, excuse me, one of the most important lessons that I did get from that program was an understanding of not just how important one's digital presence is, but also how very important it is to actively manage that online presence, because your site is omnipresent to anyone searching, even while you're asleep. So vigilance does matter. A strong digital presence or digital footprint also matters because it allows you and your business to put your best foot forward into the public domain. It gives your brand an ideal platform to communicate with customers and prospects, and gives you the opportunity to set the narrative on who you are as a brand and set yourself apart from your competitors. While it does include a website, it can also include areas outside of your control, such as conversations about your brand on social media and online reviews. According to Salesforce.com, 85% of consumers conduct research before they make a purchase online. And among the most used channels for research are websites at 74% and social media at 38%. Consequently, businesses of every size need an effective online strategy to increase brand awareness and grow. By the way, the term online hub is often interchangeable with website, but they represent two very different forms of activity. A website is primarily a one-way conversation. You might have a contact form there or a comment section, but for the most part, a website is pretty much an online brochure. On the other hand, an online hub is interactive. It brings all the different elements of your online activity under one roof and encourages community and conversation. Either way, though, your business is online, so it can be located 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it is very important to be vigilant and pay attention and closely manage your digital influence and your reputation. Reputation management is it's a strategy, it's a science. Online ORM, or online reputation management, is basically the practice of using digital marketing tactics and channels to help shape the public perception of your brand or organization or even a person. And yes, indeed, bad reviews can have a negative impact on sales and business opportunity. 92% of consumers say they learn about a business by reading online reviews. And 67% of those people say it takes between 1 and 3 bad reviews to decide against doing business with a particular company. There isn't much we can do about this guy, the scammer guy here, but except to make sure you have malware protection and spam blockers on your system. And for heaven's sakes, don't ever click on a link that comes from a source in an email that is either suspicious or it's an unknown source, because that can put some terrible software on your system where they can actually track everything that you're doing. So be very careful. There are some reasons why you have to manage your digital reputation. For example, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm just going to move on. Online reputation management. To proactively manage your reputation, you need to metaphorically keep your ear to the ground, which means monitoring social media and customer ratings so you can respond appropriately and hopefully diffuse a situation. These are 2 examples of responses to negative comments against National Car Rental and JetBlue. Although both companies probably have people whose full-time jobs it is to monitor social media and respond, regardless of company size, the mitigation steps are pretty much the same. You acknowledge the issue, apologize for what happened, provide an explanation if needed, compensate them if appropriate, but 100% of the time, invite that person to take the discussion offline. Something as simple as saying, we are sorry for your experience with our brand, and we'd like to see how we can help resolve the issue and make this right for you. Can you please send me your email to my contact information so I can follow up with you directly? This basically reassures the customer that you're interested in making the situation better and can begin to change their opinion, hopefully. Responding to negative reviews really is an important part of the continuous cycle of improving customer experience. So SEO and digital presence, social media integration, responsive design to accommodate mobile users, all that kind of sounds daunting to people. So I thought maybe we should look at some of the hesitancy issues and how we can overcome those. Your customers expect you to be online, so having a digital presence is not optional. If the idea of branding your business is overwhelming, maybe because you have a small budget, there's some good news. You can build awareness and increase exposure for your digital brand without a massive budget. If you know where to post and a few strategic ways to interact with audiences online, you can do a lot with the smallest of budget. For example, I've got 3 ways that you can do this. First of all, list your company on sites like Google My Business, but there are also sites like Bing Places, Yahoo Listings, and dozens of others that you can also leverage. These listing sites are an easy way to increase your chances of being found online. Secondly, you can inspire user-generated content. Of course, your B2B customers are not going to be as enthusiastic, perhaps, about your products as maybe B2C customers can be. But that doesn't mean that your business customers don't love your services, and maybe they're willing to share their own stories. If you do have a customer who has a great success story involving you, ask them to tell it and give them multiple options on how to do so. For some customers, recording a video is perfect. For others, it might be an audio recording of an interview or something as simple as taking photographs and sharing them. Third is collaborating with a partner. It's a very effective way to build your brand on a budget. One of the major benefits of co-branding is the ability to expand your reach by accessing your partner's audience and them by accessing your audience. Pooling resources by creating co-branded content is a low-cost way to establish a partnership, and this allows you to build credibility with a brand new audience. I don't think any business should feel that they need to come out of the chute attempting everything at once. Establishing online credibility and trust takes time, and it can be achieved through a stepped-up approach, which I like to call crawl, walk, run. Define your digital branding goals and launch a website that reflects your messaging strategy. Optimize your content with the words and phrases that your audience will use when they're looking for your solutions, and start building a database of contacts. I would suggest investing in an email marketing system or a marketing automation platform that you can begin to use to keep in touch with visitors to your site. And then pick your social media platforms and just get started. As promised, I said we'd take a look at a small A&E firm and their digital branding as an example. I did an informal audit of their website and their social media, and I believe they're currently hovering somewhere between crawl and walk, but at least they did get started. SRW is a minority and female-owned mid-sized engineering and architectural firm in Pennsylvania. These are the partners of the firm, but they also have 31 associates and dozens of A&E projects. I took a peek at their source code, and I found that they have built their website on a Squarespace platform, which is affordable, it's easy to manage, and it's easy to expand. They're also using Google Analytics to understand what people are clicking on when they arrive at their site, which informs their follow-on strategies for communications. So let me walk you through their site and their social media and assess what I think they're doing well and what they obviously can improve. Got quite a few of them. This is SRW's homepage, and from a design standpoint, this is their top navigation that they're using. And behind each of those buttons is an explanation of their menu structure. So they've done a fine job of explaining who they are, what they do, and what makes them unique. They've also, wait a minute, let me move that. I also took a look here and I said, why are these buttons so small? Well, I think it's just a Squarespace setting that they need to make it a little bit larger. It would make it look a little bit better. But their top navigation is standard, and these are the things that fall under those drop-down menus. There were a couple of red flags on their homepage. For example, I can see right here that the site is not secure. And that could be detrimental to their ability to get visitors to supply their contact information. They also didn't use a little pixel called a favicon. A favicon is a small 16 by 16 pixel that serves as an additional branding for a website, but its main purpose is to help visitors return to a tab on your web page when they have, tons of multiple tabs open. The next time you type Facebook into a search bar, look for this tiny little F. Or if you're on YouTube, look for the tiny little play button. These are favicons. And what they do is they, as I said, they provide additional branding, but they also let the person return to your website if they have a bunch of different files open or windows open. We've all heard the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So using thumbnail images is in a layout is a nice way to showcase all of your projects on a single page. As consumers, we pretty much decide to buy a product or put it back on the shelf, oftentimes is dependent upon what we see on the packaging, which has an effect even if it's only our subconscious. But just like an image on a package, a photo, a video, or a thumbnail like the ones you see here provide a first impression. Just like images on a package, we need to make a good first impression. So a well-made thumbnail image attracts interest and encourages clicks. They've done a nice job in that each of these thumbnails is, first of all, high resolution, and most importantly, they're tagged with the name of the project so that Google can find that picture in a search. SRW has done that on each one of their thumbnails, but only that a visitor can click on each one of these to reveal more information, which is shown here. So it takes the visitor to the description of the project, along with more photographs of the completed project, both inside and outside. I also like this page because they use something called breadcrumbs right here. Breadcrumbs return the visitor to the project page so that they can see more of the works, so that they can keep clicking through. They also put their social media buttons down here. So I decided, they want the people to go and look at fresher content because websites are pretty stagnant unless you add new content to them. But social media sites are supposed to contain most of the fresh information that a company has to share. So I decided to take a look and see how they handle their social media. This is their Facebook page, and I think they did a really nice job on their Facebook page. It was wise of them, especially to post their 13-year anniversary cake, because in doing so, they discreetly touted their professional stability and longevity of the 13 years they have as a going concern. As for YouTube, they seem to have started a YouTube channel, but it only contains 3 videos, and the newest one is a year old. It's a shame they didn't leverage this medium more effectively. Video marketing is one of the most powerful forms of content because you can syndicate it across a number of different channels. You strip away the audio, now you have material for a podcast. You can have it transcribed, and now you have a blog post. Or you can take clips or snippets and quotes and use them across different social media channels. The Content Marketing Institute reports that 95% of B2B marketers use LinkedIn. Twitter and Facebook came in second and third at 86% and 83% respectively, which reminds me, whether you have a number of employees with personal LinkedIn profiles or not, or you're an owner-driven business kind of like mine, a LinkedIn page is a must. LinkedIn is, as you may know, is a self-contained professional ecosystem where people interact in groups and where you can lend your expertise by participating in those discussions. Lots of B2B interactions take place on LinkedIn, so I'd strongly recommend that you make building your business page a top priority. These are what I call social no-nos. Their Instagram page has no content, and it never has. And their Twitter account has been suspended. That's a terrible hit to their credibility for anyone who might have landed on their Twitter account. If they were not planning to use those channels, the least they should do is remove the icons from their website. So let's switch gears now and look at an ideal representation of a homepage and the elements that it needs to have to populate it. These are the 10 must-have elements that should be prominently featured on every web or hub homepage. First, a logo plays a huge role in company branding strategies. The logo is basically the face of the company's brand and the first visible manifestation of the company's website. So it's most important to have a unique and clear website logo, which represents your brand at a glance. To make it easier for your visitors to know what type of website they're visiting, post your logo at the top left area of your homepage, if possible. Accompany it with a great business tagline, if you have one. If you want your visitors to stay on your page, you really should create a clear value proposition to accompany your logo. As we've discussed, number 2, social media is a critical part of a business marketing strategy, and having a great platform to promote your business and increase leads and followers if you have those platforms. According to a recent report by HubSpot, more than 73% of consumers expect the business to be on social media and are more likely to show interest in those businesses who respond to them online. Social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Google+, you name it, are gaining in popularity for business marketing every single day. So if you want to see increment in the number of followers and engagement with your company on social media, then integrate those platforms into your website's homepage where it can be easily visible to your audience. This will not only give your audience a choice to connect to you easily, but it will boost your SEO. Number 3 is clear navigation. Just like a map is pretty useless without a legend, a website is totally useless without a clear, cleanly understood navigation area. Navigation design also plays a huge role in user satisfaction and engagement, and in website traffic and search engine rankings. Navigation should be and needs to be easily understandable by your audience to help them explore your website and your content easily. Including standard navigation, like horizontal across the top or vertical on the left side of your homepage, is expected and it's user friendly. And make sure to include accurate navigation tags for your internal pages of your site, like about us, contact us, frequently asked questions or FAQs, services, blogs, and so on. Before you go live, don't forget to check whether the links in your navigation are working properly or if they're broken. There is nothing more annoying to a user than to get excited to learn more about something, and then they land on a 404 page or file not found error. That's nothing more than an invitation for the user to move on. Number 4 is just pretty much the same. It says just as a 404 error is annoying to a visitor, the same is true with missing content or contact information. Suppose a visitor lands on your homepage and wanted to have a business discussion, but they couldn't find how to get in touch with you. How frustrating would it be that the user's experience and for your business, and how you would eventually end up just losing a potential client? Always remember that the contact information is the most critical business detail that you need to share. So make it easy for your visitors to find. The most common place to put contact information is in the footer of your website. It should include information like your email address, mailing address, phone number, and perhaps even a form so they can leave their information for you. And then there are calls to action, number 5. The primary goal of a homepage is to attract visitors and keep them browsing on your site in an effort to turn them into leads. So design your homepage in such a way that whenever a visitor lands there, they have a clear idea of what action they should take just by browsing your page. Before designing CTAs, though, you should be clear yourself on what actions you really want your audience to take. Do you want them to fill out a form, register for an event, subscribe to your newsletter, learn more about your products and services? Just be clear on what it is you want the call to action to be. Optimize your CTAs as per your need and limit the copy to something brief, like no more than 5 words. For example, request a quote, sign up, register for a free trial. It's best to include 2 a primary and a secondary call to action on your homepage. Including more than two may offer far too many options for your audience and confuse them. So don't overdo it. Number 6, proof. A client's testimonial is the most powerful indicator of trust and the most effective way to humanize your brand and to reassure a potential client that your business is genuine and to assure the visitor that the products and services provided by you are excellent and that they are liked by other clients. According to Bright Local, nearly 9 out of 10 consumers read online reviews, and more than 88% say that they rely on those reviews and testimonials before they even give a newly found source any consideration at all. Number 7, benefits and features. Identify those key features that differentiate you from your competitors. It's not only important to describe exactly what your company does, but it's also important to describe why what your company does matters. Most users, both online and offline, want to know what benefits they're going to get from doing a business with you and why they should choose your company to deliver those benefits. You need to compel them to stay. The best thing to do is choose the right words and give a short overview of your company on the homepage. Include the main feature of your company and the benefits that your potential clients could have from you in that overview. And don't forget to include your keywords within the content. Also add read more or learn more links, which will redirect them to your About Us page. I've included a list of really popular keywords in the appendix that people use when they're searching for an architectural firm. I'm so sorry that I could not find a consolidated list for engineers because there are just so many subcategories in that part of your profession. However, I hope that the architect keywords do help you. Number 8, supporting images. Research shows that images are the best way to attract and get more people connected to your site. It also shows that they prefer real images rather than stock photos. So make sure the images you're using clearly indicate what you offer and that they completely match your website's theme. High resolution photos of your team are found to portray your company and its professionalism. So don't take pictures with your cell phone unless you have a really good cell phone. If necessary, hire a photographer. It is a worthwhile investment. Oh, and don't forget, you also need to consider the mobile user. So high resolution images that also have a reduced file size is important. And don't forget to add alt text to your images because so they too can be found by a Google search. Number 9, awards, certifications, and associations. Don't be shy about showcasing your awards and recognition that you've received professionally, civic organizations to which you belong. Why not take advantage of the hard work you've done to receive recognition in your profession or to highlight any philanthropy you've contributed to society for the public good? Award certifications, associations speak to the quality of your work and help you build an image of a trusted business partner. So make a good use of this powerful client attracting weapon on your homepage. And number 10, speaks to content marketing, which plays an enormous role in pleasing both your audience and search engines like Google. And it's a great content marketing strategy is to start with a blog. A blog is a terrific medium to communicate with your audience, to gain more followers and visitors, and to drive more traffic to your website. Because blogs contain fresh content, current ideas and topics, your blog post should be the heart of your content marketing strategy. Many business owners find that including their blog in a section on their homepage has not only helped them in getting more visitors, but also helped them improve their search engine rankings. So make sure to promote it wherever you find an opportunity, both on your homepage, in your social media, and even in the press. And in the appendix, I've included a link to a site called HARO, H-A-R-O, which stands for Help a Reporter Out. HARO is an online service for journalists. You subscribe to their email, which comes out twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. It's reporters who are seeking input from sources who have expertise relative to whatever story they're doing research on. You get the attribution in their story that you can add to your accolades. Haro is just I've been on it since 2013. It's really an excellent way to get your name out there. Excuse me. We, as small business owners, need to understand that nothing we do for, to, or with our digital branding strategy matters at all without being crystal clear on what a prospect's journey looks like toward becoming our customers. This is called a customer journey map, which outlines a customer's complete experience encompassing all customer interactions across all channels, devices, and touch points throughout every stage of their life cycle, from awareness to loyalty. The modern customer journey takes place in 6 phases: interest, awareness, search, research, conversion or purchase, and if they really value what you offer, advocacy. All this can start before the customer is even aware of your brand and can extend well past the first purchase. It includes how you acquire new leads and how you retain existing customers. Their journey typically starts with a prospect seeing an article, a blog, or some form of advertising, maybe a display ad on a website or a Google AdWords ad. For those companies that have a customer journey strategy in place, they've been able to reduce cost, improve sales performance, and overall are much more profitable. When it comes to content, though, one size rarely fits all. To ensure that your company's content is effective at generating and nurturing leads, you need to deliver the right content to the right people at the right time. Content mapping is the process of doing just that. With content mapping, the goal is to target content according to the characteristics of the person who will be consuming it. And that's where the buyer persona comes in. Buyer personas are fictional, generalized representations of your ideal customer. They help you understand your customer and prospect, making it easier for you to tailor the content to their specific needs, behaviors, and concerns of the different groups. The strongest buyer personas are based on market research as well as insights that you gather from actual customer base through surveys and interviews and so on. But depending on your client base, you could have as few as 2 or 3 personas, or as many as 10 to 20. If you're just getting started with personas, don't go nuts. You can always develop more if you need them later. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this slide because it pretty much explains itself. However, I will say that the planning process is vital to the success of your digital branding presence and marketing process. The last thing you want to do is leave out a process step that puts you in risk of making very visible mistakes in your always on platforms. So once you've developed your buyer persona or personas, the next step is for you and your team to spend some time fleshing out your digital branding and marketing plans. If you don't have a team, please hire someone to develop your strategy. Your brand reputation is too important not to spend the time to make sure you do it right. Mapping content to the buyer's journey, creates the guide for delivering the right content to the right person at the right time. Buyers are looking for different information at each stage in their journey, so you must create a diverse range of content to answer their questions and communicate your value. Depending on the industry, it takes time to get an audience from awareness to advocacy. And it obviously varies depending on, what industry you're in. But to create the best customer experience possible, you need to leverage that customer journey map to get organized and plan your content campaigns across multiple channels. Early stage content generally will fall within public digital channels like search and social media. Mid-stage and nurture content will fall into your email or marketing automation process. A big part of your planning process will focus on building a solid, fireproof messaging plan that maps to your customers' personas. All of your customer-facing materials should reflect your messaging framework. These next 2 pages look kind of complex, and they are, but they're more complex than you'll probably want to sit down and create. This took weeks of working with my client. I built this for one of my largest clients to promote their CRM product. And since it's their intellectual property, I did a global search and replace, and to get the name of the real company out, and I replaced it with, company name. So you could have it as kind of a pattern, if you will. Your messaging plan should clearly define your target audience. It should identify their pain points and contain messaging pillars to appeal to each of the decision makers that you're going after in the affected departments. The first item on this page is assurance that help from a knowledgeable, here we go. The first item on the second page here is assurance that help from a knowledgeable partner is on its way to help that client by calling out the challenges faced by the department with proof points to solidify exactly how those challenges will be overcome by the company's CRM solution and the professionals who will install it. Again, this is a whole lot more than you may want to create, but please do have a messaging plan so that everyone in your company uses the same words and phrases to create the materials that you're going to publish out to your client base. Once your prospect becomes a customer, you'll need to nurture them. Nurture is simply the art of educating and adding value to your audience to further your relationship with them. The slide I'm showing you now is one I built for that CRM client to illustrate all of their data sources and where their customer data that they bring in is stored, including no contact database for customers who've opted out of receiving email. The company deliberately tracks actions taken and input from social media channels to inform what information customers want to see more of and what emails should be deployed to keep them well informed. A Annuitas group found that nurtured leads make 47% larger purchases than non-nurtured leads. Juniper research found that relevant emails drive 18 times more revenue than broadcast emails. Aberdeen Group sees that emails improve click-through rates by 14% and conversion rates by 10%. And DemandGen reports that nurtured leads produce, on average, a 20% increase in sales opportunities versus non-nurtured leads. Well, as we conclude, I'd like to stress again that you don't need to do everything at once to digitize your brand, nor should you try until you've actually piloted some things that are suggested for your own business. We've looked at the opportunity that being digital affords your business. We've talked about Google and how important it is to use keywords and phrases and SEO in your content so you'll be found. We've talked about the risks to your brand and how to mitigate them. We've looked at the customer journey and the importance of understanding that journey to mapping our content to where they are in that journey. And of course, customer retention and nurture. In the appendix to this presentation, I provided links and slides to some cost-effective resources that you can use to leverage your digital branding efforts. I hope this information I've shared today has proved useful, and I think I'll just stop now and ask if you all have any questions.
Yvonne, this is Leslie. I do have a quick question in regards to ADA compliance on websites. Do you have some additional resources or just someplace you can point us to?
I am so glad you brought that up, Leslie. You're absolutely right. Every web platform now accommodates ADA by allowing you to have, you can turn on sound and have the content read to you. Or if you're hearing impaired, it can read it to you. So thank you for bringing that up. I will make sure that I add that to future, content.
So Yvonne, from your presentation today, I find a significant dovetail into the grand scheme of marketing your company. And it's as important on the construct of your website as it is your marketing brochures or your business card.
Yes.
And it's really critical that you know that government contracting officers will look at your website, they will look at your social media, and they look for professionalism in how you present yourself. They also look for continuity across all platforms, be it LinkedIn or Twitter or Pinterest or whatever you're doing. It's a brave new world because historically, the government never really ventured into that, but things have changed radically, and it's all about your message and your appearance. And if you have a Facebook page that is your company Facebook page, what kind of content do you have on there? Are you promoting your employees or community service or your product, or or do you use it a platform for discussion within your client base or your customer base? Or in the same thing with Twitter, do you use Twitter to connect with agencies like the Pacific Fleet or the Army Corps of Engineers or the U.S. Forest Service? And they look at your response to what they're posting, and it just kind of clicks as to your professionalism. And in the world of government contracting, there's two words that the federal government looks at for every potential awardee, and that's responsiveness and responsibility. And that carries across the board in everything that you do. So, websites, if you're texting somebody, and you're trying to text a contracting officer, well, rule number one, they may not accept text. And rule number two, are you using Gmail instead of a dedicated URL? In which case it may never get through their firewalls. So again, it all comes down to the professionalism that runs the gamut in all things social media and IT, security issues and everything else. So, and with that, I'm gonna open up the discussion. I see Andrew has his hand up. So go ahead, Andrew.
Hi, great presentation, by the way. That was pretty in-depth. I'm definitely gonna have to rewatch it on YouTube once it comes up.
Thank you.
But when you're dealing with social media profiles and businesses that are up and coming, like in the construction industry, they really reluctant to even use a website, much less make a Twitter page. But what do you recommend you do when you've got a company who they played the old phone book game and okay, the more A's we have in our company name, the closer to the top of the phone book will be. So we're AAA screws and hardware. And then they go on to Twitter and that's already taken. How do you recommend they work around somebody's already got your name on social media thing? Do you just create an entirely new brand for social media, or what would you do in that circumstance?
Well, that's a good question, Andrew. They should first make sure that that name isn't taken. I mean, you can go out and search. I'm trying to think of the name of the site. Well, you search to make sure that a URL has not been already claimed and paid for, because you can get in real trouble if you start using somebody else's identity. So it really, you have to go and make sure that you have that brand locked down and that you pay for it. There are some companies out there that are unscrupulous, and they'll go and they'll just grab a whole bunch of different URLs and pay for them, and then charge somebody who really wants that URL a whole lot of money to own it or to capture it. But that was kind of in the early part, if you will, of the web experience. I don't think it's that prevalent anymore. But number one, you have to make sure somebody else doesn't own that name. You can get sued. Did that answer your question?
A little bit. Mostly, I worked with a company whose name was Action.
Uh-huh.
And as their government contracting representative, it got messy because there's a lot of things named Action. And realistically, because they're legal in Spokane, Washington, they're 100% good, ready to roll. But they hadn't touched the internet since it was invented. They didn't need this because we're a mouth-to-mouth business. Okay, well, 1975 wants their business model back. These are called websites. And we need to start trying to get them. And, they go in and everything's, there was a movie, Action Jackson, something that was really popular out of India. And the word action is just completely gone. There is no access to it. And our solution was to just come up with another URL that we ended up using as our entire web services, which it was, the word action was in it, but it was obviously a long, drawn out, way too long for friendly marketing purposes URL. And I just don't know of how one really solves that problem, short of finding the giant wad of cash to throw at the guy that put that URL up in 1999 because he's Action John and he has the action.com website because that's him.
Yeah, that's a sticky one. I mean, are they still in business?
They are, but since they're no longer my client, they have also changed owners. So Schadenfreude a little bit there, but
well, I'm surprised they're in business if they're a word of mouth entity. That's hard to believe that anybody still thinks that way.
Well, it seems to be a side effect of the construction industry, because your average CEO is an entrepreneur, who's usually a sales guy of some kind, and sales guys in construction, they're literally dealing with how to buy and sell building contracts or lumber. And when you get into that whole land of things, it's, well, you could use the internet for that. And I don't trust them, their internets, the government's watching it type of stuff comes in. And, it's just such a Luddite version of life. I don't mean to be so judgy about it, but it's really hard when I take these clients on to try and convince them to just step it up a little bit, get some what do you mean you're using a Gmail address? You're trying to forget, oh God,
That is a no-no. Yeah. Because I mean, we talked about the nefarious emails that come in. Most of them come in as a Gmail address. I mean, I look at that email address, you know, they send you something saying you're from Xfinity, for example, and
Yeah.
you need to click here and go and look at your account. You came from Gmail. I'm not doing that.
That's right. Well, thank you, Andrew, for your insight into
Yeah.
that. And, you know, 50 years ago, word of mouth was the ultimate methodology to drive customers to your company.
Yes.
But it's a brave new world now, and you have to embrace the changes and accept those, yeah, particularly within some of these industries that have become very high tech. And, you know, the construction industry, yeah, there was a time when they weren't really on the web, but now, you know, designers and architects and landscape guys, you know, they're all there. And
Mhm.
you know, it's the first place that people go to find, you know, quotes or services or contacts. And yeah, so you cannot dismiss it
Mm-mm.
in this day and age.
No,
at
you
all.
can't. No, you can't. I'm surprised they're not using CAD products to design buildings and, you know, things that they are gonna build.
Yeah,
So, you know, they have to be online a little bit.
Well, the newer networking technologies for the construction industry are just fantastic.
Mm,
They can actually just have all the architects sit down with all the project managers, sit down with all the guys that are making the bids, and everybody just sits there in one little pile. They just start switching all stuff around, and oh, I need more outlets here, and no, that office is too big. And then
mhm,
by the time it's all said and done, they've done in a couple hours online
mhm.
what would have taken a month and 100 meetings.
Yeah.
And oh well, we can't coordinate with that guy. Oh, can't. And it's just fascinating to watch. I just look
Mhm.
back at the old client base and it's like, oh, I feel so bad for you guys.
Okay. Hi, this is Lisa Harbert from Harbert Engineers.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm a small company, and I want to say that word of mouth is not such a terrible thing for a small business. I know I've been to several seminars lately that think that word of mouth is terrible, unsustainable, but it's not. Because as an engineering firm that's not getting the big municipal projects,
Mhm.
I'm looking for residential projects. And when you said you couldn't find the right wording for engineering,
Mhm.
neither can my clients.
Oh.
So I've had all the big companies who are trying to put you on their services and sell the web services to you and marketing, the construction companies.
Mhm.
They don't have any of my services listed. So they're not any good for me either. So the only way I can get business
Mhm.
is for an architect or another engineering firm. Somebody, you know, gives them a call and
Mhm.
says, we need somebody to do drainage on our single family home. Jacobs is not going to do that.
Mm.
They're going to say, oh, we met Lisa Harbert at this last meeting. Give her a call. So it depends on what field you're in and
Mhm.
who you're marketing to, of whether that's worth, of whether word to word, mouth to mouth
Mhm.
marketing is the way to go. It's my only way to go.
Okay.
And as far as, I want to argue about the Gmail accounts also,
Okay.
because I feel like these industries are trying to nickel and dime me. You've got AutoCAD who wants a yearly fee. Microsoft wants a yearly fee. My programs that I use for drainage, they all want a yearly fee.
Mm.
There comes a time when some of the money needs to go in my pocket instead of email fees.
Yeah.
So we can, and And I think we've gotten to the point where we understand that you can have an Outlook account or you can have a Gmail account, and it's not a horrible thing anymore.
Well, yeah, as long as the people who get your email on that Gmail account know that you're legitimate, it's okay. It's when you start going out in and trying to solicit new clients who don't know anything about you, that's when the danger becomes, because everybody right now is nervous because they get these phishing emails every single day. I get at least 100.
And that's why word of mouth is the way I go. I don't do any cold calls because I don't have to.
That's good. That's great. Leslie, you're on mute.
When Washington PTAC recommends networking, as in it's who you know, as a major portion of your outreach. And this is through events like this today. It's through, back in the day where you used to have in-person conferences. And, and really and truly, the networking is a critical aspect, particularly at the federal level. If the contracting officer knows who you are and is familiar with your work. At the state level, it's, not as heavy duty as at the federal level, but, state agencies, gravitate towards, names that they're kind of familiar with. So the more that you can connect with these agencies and these contracting officers, the better known that you will be. So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with Lisa on this. Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa.
So any other questions, concerns, comments? Well, I would really like to thank Yvonne for her presentation today. We have this available to you in our digital Dropbox, and I believe that Andrew dropped that in there for you. And if you have any questions about this topic, or you need some, further enlightenment, you're welcome to connect with Yvonne or with anyone at Washington PTAC, and we'll be glad to work through some of the issues with you. So with that, thank you, Yvonne.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
I'd like to thank the Port of Seattle for being the instrument for getting this message out to everybody, the Northwest Small Business Transportation Resource Center, and Washington PTAC, which we were really privileged today to have our program director do the first session this afternoon. So with that, I think we will call it a day, and hope to see you on the goods and services section on Thursday. So thanks everybody for attending, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.